G'day everybody, where's Wally here? Well, how often have you come across a flatty and you mentioned that the ISS kills the flat earth dead, only to have them parrot something back at you like, "Oh, you can't see a 747 100 kilometres away, man." So how would it be possible to see a similar sized ISS at 420 kilometres? No way, man. Limited eyesight, refraction, angle of attack, you know. I guess the main problem is that it's incredibly difficult to get 100 kilometres away from a plane to be able to see it from that distance. Difficult, yes, but not impossible. I will show you in a minute. But first, a lesson in angular size. Okay, let's have a look at this Boeing B777. It's the extended range version. It has a wingspan of 64.8 metres. And by a simple ratio of the moon size and the distance, you can calculate the distance that the B777 has to be the same angular size as the full moon. You could also use trig functions to calculate it from the angular size of the moon at, let's say, 0.557 degrees. And that distance is 66.667 kilometres. Interesting, hey flatties? Now, because angular size is a ratio, when you say double the distance, you halve the apparent size. So 2 planes fit across the moon at 13.33 kilometres. 4 planes across at 26.667 kilometres. Now we can extend this right out to 64 little planes right across, and the distance is around 426 kilometres, which is right around the distance to the ISS in orbit. Now I know that a B777 front on, it's kind of skinny, barely visible. And what makes this even more obvious is when it crosses the limb of the moon on the right, the nav lights are now blinking in the dark, and you can see the actual full wingspan is quite a bit wider than the contrails. But if it were a more rectangular shape, say, then it would be easily seen even at 400 kilometres. Now this is a huge reason why we hardly ever see this shot of a plane at over 100 kilometres away, because it has to be low to the horizon. Because remember, planes can only go about 13-14 kilometres above our heads, so they have to be right out near the horizon. And when it's low to the horizon, we can usually only see the plane edge on or front on. So a plane, whilst almost as wide as the ISS, is not going to be able to block anywhere near the amount of light as the ISS. Well, after all, the ISS has those huge solar panels designed to block as much light as possible. That's kind of their thing. Well, that's it for the theory today. So thanks for watching. What? You want to see more? You actually want evidence? Well, okay then. Well, channel friend and sometimes target, Harry Bird from Sydney, he's kindly allowed me to use this fantastic video he shot on the 27th of April 21. And it was just as the full moon rose at 5:33 p.m. and about 10 minutes later he caught this. Now the plane was silhouetted against the full moon. The plane took around a minute to cross the face of the moon because it was flying almost directly in line with the moon and Harry. So the moon rose at 5:33 p.m. Initially I thought this was ANZ 248 because it departed Sydney right about then, but it was on a track that was too far south. And then my mate Critical Think, he found flight UAE449. It was Auckland to Kuala Lumpur, and it was crossing overhead at around 39,000 feet. Bingo! So how about everyone, you have a guess at just how far from Harry this flight UAE449 was when it was in front of the moon. I initially thought it must have been around the 100, maybe 200 kilometre mark, just from the angular size and perspective and the Father Ted thing. So are we all good now? Yes? Nah, you're right, I need me some spreadsheets. Us Globers, we sure love spreadsheets. Well, flatties have spreadsheets too. Exhibit 1, how flatties spreadsheets. Good on you, Brian.
But dude, I got 100 of these of spreadsheets, getting it just right. And the only problem is it keeps cutting me out, and also it keeps okay. So let me just do this real time, real quick. Okay.
Okay.
Let me do this real time. Okay. So 30. Okay. St. Augustine, Florida. Okay. Jacksonville, Florida is about 4,000. I'm at 30 degrees. Okay. So 41.52. That's
So I got me some data. The first thing I wanted to know was, where was the moon during those 27 minutes from the rise time of 5:33 to 6 p.m. local time? Well, I popped into mooncalc.org and I grabbed the elevation angle to the moon as well as the azimuth or direction to the moon every 5 minutes for that little time frame. And I downloaded Flight Radar, the ADS-B tracking data for that flight as well. I got that as a CSV file and I imported that into my spreadsheet. Next, for every UAE449 waypoint from 5:35 to 6 p.m, I calculated the distance and the bearing from Harry's location to the plane. A little bit of simple globe maths had that sorted, no problem. As I had the ADS-B flight data for the flight, I could easily look up exactly where the plane was when it was in front of the moon. But I just had to know when it was in front of the moon. Now, I knew roughly from Harry's file creation timestamp, but you know me, I have to be precise. I had to know exactly when. Well, I manually plugged the distance and elevations from the KML file into Walter Bisland's Advanced Earth Curve Calculator. So once I'd calculated the elevation angles from Harry up to the plane for both the GE and the FE models, add a new column and add them as well. You will see why shortly. Now I have enough data to do some graphs. First I plotted the horizontal angles to the plane and to the moon as dependent variables on the y-axis, and naturally we have time as the independent variable on the x-axis. Now the moon was tracking north as it rose because, well, we're south of the equator and we're on a globe, and that's what they do. The plane was tracking west and it was on a course to pass over Sydney and to pass south of Harry. This meant that the two lines actually crossed each other, right when the plane and the moon were at the same azimuth angle. Second, I plotted the vertical angles to the plane to the moon as dependent variables on the y-axis, and of course time had to be the independent variable on the x-axis. What else would you do? I actually plotted three lines this time, as the flat earth angle to the plane was higher than the globe earth angle to the plane. You know, because there's no drop on Flatardia. So you know what? I think this is about to get interesting. So what did we see? The azimuths crossed at 5:54 p.m. But to be in front of the moon, it needed to be at the same elevation as well at exactly that time. So let's have a look. Oh dear. Seems the globe earth elevations crossed at 5:54 too. Well, fancy that. Well, the flat earth plane elevation angles did get close enough to the moon, but that was about 5 minutes too early, so they wouldn't have lined up with the azimuth angles. Oh, and it didn't cross the moon, it rather would have tracked onto the moon and back off on the same side from whence it came. Well, isn't that contrail just so pretty? So that gives us evidence that there is a running propulsion system on that plane, something that we never see on the ISS as it transits the sun or the moon. I guess the ISS just doesn't have a propulsion system that's running all the time, as it would need to speed up and slow down and bend left all day long. Oh, now we're finally done. Now that was so beautiful. I love it when the data backs up this demonstrable reality. And one final question for extra credit. Why was the ADS-B data for UAE449 so patchy prior to around 1736? And after 1736, the flight was tracking quite nicely, with a data point every minute or so. If someone could tell me exactly why, that would be really great. So there we have it, folks. Now it's time for that final wrap-up. At 5:54, UAE499 was at minus 34.009 latitude and 152.705 longitude, making it 138 kilometers away from Harry. So how about that? Next time you see a flatty telling you can't see the ISS in front of the moon because it's too far away, tell them they're wrong. Again. Thanks guys, and thanks Harry for letting me have a play with your beautiful video. I think this is absolutely a 1 in a million shot, and thanks very much. It needs to be out there for all to enjoy. Well, perhaps not all, perhaps some of the flatties won't like this because their excuse about the ISS, you can't see it from that far away, has just gone pop.